We're ready.
Uh-huh.
Welcome to the behind the scenes of the Been Thinking About State of the Ozarks podcast. Oh, here comes Alejandro. He's not there. He's a little bit in the frame. Now he's in the frame.
Yeah.
Alejandro, ¿cómo está?
I've been fighting allergies.
I'm so sorry. Black mold?
Black mold, acorn dust,
It's, well,
coffee grind.
we've had a lot of rain. And a lot of things are blooming.
Question is he allergic to asphalt?
I'm allergic to the most amazing weekend that we just had ever with Writers Artist Night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we'll be
Talking about once we start recording.
Yes, and you got your phone ready for me to hijack off.
Yep.
You alright there?
Yeah.
Soda life?
Yes.
Okay. The great thing about the audio recording is nobody can see that I just am dressed the same way that I was in the gym.
Everyone sees and judges you.
Alright.
And the good thing about the video recording is that no one can see that I'm not wearing pants.
Alright, there, David Letterman. Actually,
I'm kidding.
Ta-da! Alright.
Alright, we need to get this started.
There we go. Welcome to the State of the Ozarks podcast. This is Josh Heston, Editor-in-Chief.
And this is Ethan Grubaugh.
And we're talking about our Ozarks.
Your community.
And this episode of Been Thinking About has been brought to you by Vintage Paris Coffee Shop and Roastery with Matt and Jessica Farmer.
Artist Christine Reitzel, Beauty from Light.
Josh Huxtable, State of the Ozarks Patron.
Stafford's Barbershop and Shave Company, the place for men in downtown Branson.
Shepherd the Musical, Rediscovering America's Story.
Blue Rock Print Company, upgrade your look.
And the Taney County Health Department, creating opportunities for healthy lives in our community. There we go. And we were down at Vintage Paris.
Yep.
On Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. You weren't.
I was not.
You were working.
I had scheduling, yeah.
You had scheduling conflicts. You were making a living. The rest of us were at Vintage Paris.
Living. But I mean, I guess it kind of worked out because I had to be up the next morning at like
Early.
6.
Yeah.
So
Orientation, student orientation.
Yeah.
Bolivar.
Mm-hmm.
Excited?
Bearcats.
Go Bearcats.
Yeah.
How was it? I haven't talked to you about this.
It was fun. I mean, like I said, I'm non-traditional student, so I'm going back as an incoming freshman at 24. So I'm walking around, and it made more financial sense to live on campus.
Yes.
And be a full-time student. That way, I can just have it done and over with.
Absolutely.
In 4 years. And so I'm walking around, and even like the people who are like going into their senior year of college still look like children. So
Age gap.
yeah, so that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the overall thing was it was good.
Good.
We mostly just walked. We sat in a few different, like, I don't want to say seminars, but some things that they went over. What to expect before coming in here. I met my student advisor and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. And you're going to be living on campus?
Yep.
Did you pick out your dorm?
There were only 2 available, and I got put in Memorial Hall.
Okay.
Which, my dad has some opinions about, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you get to see your dorm room? Or?
I didn't actually get to see what they had. They had 3 different dorms, like preset, like, in 3 different looks depending on how you and your roommate wanted to set up your dorm, whether you wanted to bunk it so that way you could have room for a couch, or 2 separate rooms, or or 2 separate locations for the bed, however you wanted to do it.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
At what point do you find out who you're rooming with?
Oh yeah, I met him there.
Okay. Okay. Cool. What's he like?
Seemed kind of shy, but I think at that point just about everyone there is. It's a big change.
Yes.
In lifestyle, especially for people coming straight out of high school.
Yeah.
Which he was. So
Absolutely.
But he asked how I wanted to set my room up, and I said, "You tell me, and I'll just roll with it."
Cool.
Because I'm not picky. I prefer not to do bunks, but if that's, you know...
Right.
If that's what you want to do, that's what we'll do.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool. We need to at least get you back in enough to get updates.
Right. Right.
Enough to get updates. And, of course, then on Friday night, we had Writers Artist Night.
Yeah, the second biggest event of the year for State of the Ozarks.
Yes, it is. And this was I counted up, it was the 6th event. The 6th Writers Artist Night that we've done.
Wow.
Well, and it gets a little confusing because technically the 5th Writers Artist Night, the 6th Writers Night, because the first time we did not include artists.
Oh.
And so the timeline, if I'm calculating this right, was September of 2015.
Oh, goodness.
September 15, we had Writers Night, and we had over 60 entries for Writers Night. We had over 60 entries for Writers Night, and then as soon as it was done, people started saying, that was amazing, when are you going to do the next one? And the funny thing was, it didn't feel quite right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I don't know, in terms of when we're going to. And then the following March, Marty Schmidt, who's an artist, among lots of other things, Marty called me and said, is there any way that we can incorporate art with the written word? And that's where the rest of this started, where we collect written entries for a month, and then for about 2 months, then we share the written entries with regional artists, and then they have approximately 2 months to create their pieces.
Yeah.
And then we collect all of the art. The art was due on June 14th, and then we had the preliminary judging panel, or jury panel, all at the house on Monday. You got to be there.
Yeah, I was part of the preliminary judging, so, I mean, if you're upset with whether or not you placed, don't email Josh, don't email Dad. They didn't have anything to do with it. They just said, here's
food, go look
here's
at this
food,
stuff.
Here's art, here's reading, have at it. Now, I will say, as a disclaimer,
yes,
you know, the judging panel was mostly comprised of, you know, professional artists, professional
we had
art, you know.
we had Dr. Hayden Head, who's retired faculty from College of the Ozarks and former department chair of the English department.
So big literary background.
Yes. We had Christine Reitzel, who is an independent State of the Ozarks member, and then great artist and muralist.
Yes.
And then Teresa Pellegrino. And Teresa is co-founder and co-owner of Pellegrino's School of Music and Art on Republic Road in Springfield, and also went to the Boston Art Institute.
Yeah. So 2 people who really know art, 1 person who really knows literature,
yes.
Josh Ong.
Yep.
Who
you and of course Josh is a great photographer.
Yeah.
And a good writer.
Yeah.
And so you guys were there too.
Yeah.
And then on the night of the event, what ended up happening was it was pared down because of schedules. It was pared down to Hayden and Christine and Teresa.
Yeah.
And we put them at a table up front. And it was good. There was I feel like this was, I walked away from this event feeling like this was the best Writers Artist Night that we've ever done. The art and the writing both have really elevated.
Yeah.
And it just, the level of the level of just focus or intention that not only did the participants but the crowd brought to it, and it was, we were at a capacity crowd.
Yeah.
Absolutely packed, and things went incredibly smoothly. I felt like we finished in good time. We got through, and I got to read my story,
which we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yes. I got to do that, and it was a great was a great moment, and for people who missed it, the written pieces and the art, the accompanying art. Let's talk. What is the odd humming sound? I have no idea what that is. It doesn't seem to be with our stuff, but it's kind of annoying. And it quit. And so for people who were not able to be there, all of the art pieces, all of the written pieces will get featured on State of the Ozarks over the next several months. And we kick that off with, I want to talk about some of this, and then I want to come back to Matt's.
Okay. Matt's
comment. That's the order I want to do this. And then we'll get your dad in here because I want to get his input on some of this as well. So we're covering a lot in a relatively short period of time. You're welcome. With this weekly on Sunday, we featured two written pieces and one art piece that was part of Writers Artist Night. We had an article or original story written by Dalton Quick, and it was entitled Beneath the Willows, and the art was created by Freeman with Maple Hill Ceramics. Amazing piece.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing piece. Only a portion of that piece is currently on the site.
Yeah, the whole piece, it's really cool because it's got like 5 or 6 different canvases
that are all together.
Yeah, but not in like any particular order.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got some that are sticking up in one side, and like the whole thing like really tells the story about the written piece, which is really cool.
It is, and it's a heartbreaking story.
Yeah.
There was so much when I collect, because I review all the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I review all the written works as they come in. I would say like 80% of what came in was really dark this year. It was either sad or heartbreaking or, oh, hi, it's suicide.
Hey!
And all these pieces, but the pieces were also, by and large, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave some of the artists a lot to play with. And Freeman definitely did not disappoint.
Yeah.
One of the things that he brought up in his presentation was that Impressionism was born during the same decade as the Civil War. And so, specifically with Manet, not Monet, different artist, but in France. And so he specifically chose an Impressionistic style to portray the art.
That's interesting.
I thought so. Man. Sorry, guys.
It's alright.
And of course my piece was not in the running.
Right, because
I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I'm not part of the competition. But you got to read it. You actually read it because it wasn't part of the competition. It was not in the stack.
Right.
So you had not read it until
about an hour ago.
Right. And it's titled Kewpie.
Yes.
We're getting very mixed reviews.
Yes.
On this story.
Yes.
And but before we do that, tell me what you thought of the story.
I keep doing that. I swallowed a piece of corn that was stuck in my teeth. All right, so Kewpies. First of all, I just wanted to point out.
Yes.
I know that there are people who really love Kewpies.
Yes.
You are one of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Kewpies,
yes, I am.
Kewpies are endearing to you.
Yes.
They're not endearing to everyone, including myself. I find them very uncomfortable and kind of creepy, and by kind of creepy I mean they're absolutely horrifying. Now, I also have a fear of porcelain dolls, so the Kewpies kind of tie right into that. So the piece I thought was entertaining because I have this preconceived notion that these things are like something out of a nightmare, which actually is part of the.
In the case of the story, yes.
Yes. I don't want to give away everything, but basically the Kewpies are demonic and evil, and they're also like that in the story.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And I think I find this really interesting. They're with Kewpie dolls. It is either love or hate.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of middle ground.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who wrote the story. I'm getting some decidedly negative feedback from individuals who love their Kewpies because I wrote the article or wrote the story. It is. I also was asked on social media if it was real. And I went, no, it is fiction.
Yeah,
It really is, trust me,
I mean,
guys.
that says something about your writing, though.
There you go. There you go.
Look at it that way.
I'll take it as an amazing compliment. But when I first, because I have been, for 10 years, I have been a huge advocate and proponent of the creator of the Kewpie, Rose O'Neill, who passed away in the 1940s. And I still am. And I've been a huge proponent of Bonnie Brook, the museum and estate that was Rose's favorite. Still am. Took you out there.
Yeah.
Against your will.
Yeah. Well, no, it was. You asked if I wanted to go. I said yeah. So that's on me. All right.
And then we got there.
Yes. Okay. So
and all those little Kewpies we're looking at.
I think, if you guys have listened to the other podcasts, you've heard me get on my soapbox about Kewpies before. And once again, Josh is a huge supporter of the Kewpies and the Make Bonnie Book Great Again movement and all that good stuff. But
I've even got the cap. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I gotta get my train.
I derailed you on that one,
Yeah.
didn't I, there, Bearcat? I am a proponent, advocate of Kewpies.
Yes, and I get that they came out of a place of love and all that other stuff, and the art style from back then is a lot different. Like I said, porcelain dolls, awful. There's one in my grandmother's house that's kept in a glass case for your protection. Now,
Hashtag Annabelle.
yeah. To me, there's something about the way they stare into your soul and look at all the sins you've done in your life and just smile.
That's a good description of it.
They know.
They know.
They know.
They know. They know.
It's horrible.
And certainly with the publication of this article, I'm definitely finding that there are some people who passionately feel that these are incredibly lovable, and there is a huge disconnect from those folks and the other folks who have a very visceral response against them.
Well, and the Kewpies are like the 1940s version of Furbies. Those things were awful.
Oh, some dolls some toys. Yeah, so we know how you feel.
Yep.
I do think it's interesting because I actually like Kewpies, and people would read the article and think that would arrive at a different conclusion.
Right.
I actually do, like I said, I added I added a disclaimer based on the response. It wasn't a huge number of responses,
Right.
but I was actually getting responses of people saying, "How dare you?" And quite easily actually. Because I'm good at writing fiction.
Yeah, and
It's called being a writer.
And the whole point of the story was not to slight Rose O'Neill's reputation or anything like that. It was someone challenged you to do it. You did it.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a interesting read. It's kind of freaky.
Yes. And I like freaky.
Yeah.
Because I'm Celtic, but also, and we'll get into this later, so is Rose O'Neill.
And here's the thing. You got to remember, when you're reading this story, the Kewpies are freaking dolls. That's it.
You're destroying people's childhood right now. I can hear the tears.
Oh, okay. Cry. Go ahead. No one who likes Kewpies is listening.
Oh my God.
You may end up having to edit a lot of that.
Hashtag Kewpie8. So on that, let's get your dad in here and pick his brain.
Yeah. Do you want to read the email after?
Yeah.
That's just now. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
We'll
forgot
get
to grab another chair, so I'll just.
No, we'll get you back in.
Okay.
We'll get you back in here for the
outro.
for the outro, and then we'll start with Matt's.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Enjoying?
I'll just keep the clock in front of you.
Okay.
Just so you can see. But not
Yes.
that it matters.
Yeah.
It's true. No one's gonna. Facebook though.
Facebook.
Will you replay it on Facebook? The audio? No, just podcast.
Just the. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're good.
Yeah. Is he coming?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
grabbing his hat.
Okay. Haters gonna hate. Alejandro.
My nemesis is Kewpies. Well, my third wife, cousin, times 10, was a Kewpie. It was crazy. She ruined his life, took him to the courts, and all that. Anyways, Dale.
This is all a joke to you.
So
isn't
what
it?
are we?
We're gonna start with Kewpies and go from there.
Kewpies.
Dale, it's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Ain't seen you in a whole minute.
Yes, I know. Wow.
We've been, of course, for people who don't know, we work together
Yes.
constantly
Yes.
on State of the Ozarks events, and now the Branson Farmers Market.
Yes.
So if you happen to be in the area and are looking for tomatoes, we can fix you up as long as you're here between now and October, weather permitting, Tuesdays, 3 to 7, at the south end of the Branson Landing.
Next to the big bridges down there.
On the way to Hollister.
Yep. You'll get to see old Farmer Dale. He'll be down there picking his cucumbers in his nose.
But not with your cucumber. So, you've been following along. You've been following along on the Kewpie Wars.
Yes.
The Kewpie Wars that broke out last night at the publication of the issue. Before I throw in my 2 cents worth, I want to get your thoughts, because there's valid points on both sides.
I understand, that there's some folks that probably have taken some sort of offense to the story, but it is fictitious. But from my perspective, from what I know of Rose O'Neal, she would have thought this hilarious. She was very much a person who went for the shock value, And I know that there's folks who probably not going to agree with that either, because they've idolized her and they set her up here. But if you look at the history of Rose O'Neal, especially here in the Ozarks, my goodness, she was a wonderful lady and she accomplished a lot. And part of it was because she wasn't afraid to put herself out there.
And break rules.
And break rules. Oh my. Did
And
she ever.
she's one of my heroes, although I don't think I break as many rules as she did.
Yeah.
When you think about the fact that, well, she was one of the richest women in the world,
Yes.
certainly one of the richest artists in the world at the time. Her Kewpie empire began in 1909 when her Kewpies were featured in Ladies' Home Journal, and was featured across the United States, and it became a worldwide phenomenon, and then a worldwide merchandising phenomenon, which made Rose O'Neal even richer than she already was.
Yeah.
People oftentimes, even when they're following Rose O'Neal as the mother of the Kewpie, do not necessarily realize that she was already wealthy before, simply for her work as an internationally recognized illustrator. And she had a number of homes. She had an estate in Connecticut. She had she had a villa in Italy, and she had Bonnybrook. And Bonnybrook is, of course, just up from Bear Creek. about what, 6-7 miles
Yeah.
north of Branson. It's up on 65.
It's not very far. But beautiful place, beautiful location.
Yeah, and tell me your thoughts on Bonnybrook. It's amazing out there.
It is. It's a very peaceful place. Of course, they have reconstructed the Bonnybrook Mansion because it did at some point burn down.
Yes, a fire is featured in my fictitious story.
Yes.
That is not history. That is fiction.
Yeah.
It was not arson.
No. And but it's very quiet. It's very peaceful. And it's probably one of the best kept secrets here in the Ozarks.
Yes.
One of the things that I have, it's kind of excited me about the story, is that it has drawn a lot of attention all of a sudden to Bonnybrook.
It just in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and I think they're going to reap some benefit from it.
Yeah.
Is my, but the museum is beautiful. It's run by some very nice folks out there.
Yes.
The grounds are gorgeous with all the floral and the fauna that's going on.
I think it's either Taney County or Christian County Master Gardeners.
Yeah.
Go to town out there and make it beautiful. And the family cemetery
Yes.
is out there. Rose O'Neill is buried out there.
Mm-hmm.
And is, in all fairness, and again, folks who idolize the innocence of the Kewpies, I know clearly disagree with me on this. Rose O'Neill is one of my heroes because she was a rule breaker. She was willing to, within her era, be very subversive, challenge the status quo. She was very vocal about women's right to vote. A lot of the time she would not wear a bra. She wore these massive gowns, velvet gowns, just to go to the drugstore in Branson in the 1930s, and sandals and no bra. And she also had a penchant for smoking cigars. She created the Sweet Monster collection, which can be very easily misconstrued as really dark. A lot of individuals have gone into the museum and looked at things and were like, "Oh my gosh, that's satanic," and it isn't.
No, it's not.
Although there is that one poster of Satan with a Kewpie, not a Kewpie. There's something, he's cradling something. It is a Kewpie, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, and the idea that this little Kewpie's gotten lost and found himself in hell, and Lucifer is contemplating his lost innocence and is cradling the Kewpie rather than like attacking.
Yeah.
It's very oddly poignant. We've got an article, a gallery showing article of Rose O'Neill's Sweet Monster collection that, to my knowledge, is the first public exhibition showing outside of Bonnybrook of the Sweet Monsters since 1922, which I was really excited to be granted permission to do that. And to me, this story, which again some people have taken offense to, is to me it is an homage to Rose O'Neill. And like you said, I think she would have found it funny. I don't think she would have been offended by it. One of the other dynamics, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because I wrote this in to the story. I went back and forth on it. But in the story, so huge spoilers, is that the Kewpies are evil. That's being very subversive, I know. And at one point, there's a dream sequence in which a woman described as Rose O'Neill has been attacked and is on the floor, and the Kewpies are around her. Rose O'Neill was much more than the Kewpie.
That's right.
I mean, she was a fully faceted human being with a public life and a public persona, a private life that had a lot of heartbreak and a lot of turmoil. And she essentially died penniless and forgotten in the 1940s after having left behind this extraordinary body of work. but she is remembered predominantly in the last 50, 70 years simply as the mother of the Kewpie. And I think part of that has been because of the merchandising, because of the success of the merchandising that took place. And there are times that the creation, that the artist's creation, takes on such a life of its own that it suffocates and destroys or overwhelms the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that was not the case.
Could be. I mean, being consumed by the thing that you created.
Yes. And as a writer, and I know Rose O'Neil was a writer as well, with a very melancholy, beautiful melancholy soul of the Celts. That's what I love about Rose O'Neil. That moment that I wrote into the story, which I think a number of people are taking issue with, is really an homage to that, or that, a visceral catharsis over that concept. And to people who single-mindedly love Rose O'Neil for being the mother of the Kewpie, I would challenge them to look beyond that and really start looking at Rose O'Neil as a fully fleshed out human being with all of the innate issues that we all have as human beings. And the idea that, just as as an example, and this is part of historical record, she tried to restart her career in the late 1930s, early 1940s, because she was out of money. And it was extremely tragic. Her other properties had been sold off. That amazing Embrace of the Tree, which, for the record, the Embrace of the Tree, which is a sculpture that Rose created. It is on display in Bonnybrook. As a sculptor, Rose was tutored by none other than Auguste Rodin in Paris. Mm-hmm. And this sculpture, for individuals who think my stuff is too dark, this sculpture is taken from Greek mythology. It is a Greek god raping a nymph. Mm-hmm. And as the act of violence is taking place, she is transforming into a tree. And it is called, the Embrace of the Tree. Mm-hmm. It is a beautiful, beautiful piece. But it's displaying, granted, it's classy because it's from Greek mythology, but it's the illustration of rape. Mm-hmm. And Rose writes in her memoirs that she's going, I'm not really sure, because they had to move it from Connecticut in the dark of night because everything at the Connecticut estate was about to be collected by creditors. And they moved it and then had to position it, and she had to have local guys doing it. Local hillbilly folks of Taney County in the 1930s positioning this sculpture of two naked figures in violent sexual embrace. And the quotes on this are in that article I wrote on the Roads to Bonnybrook article, which I'll also put on the podcast page. But she's like, I don't know how they really feel about this. They won't say anything. And I love that willingness to be subversive, the willingness to push boundaries. But she was trying to restart her career, and there was, of course, the little laughing ho-ho, mm-hmm. Which would be very controversial today. And she launched it was a little Kewpie-like Buddha, mm-hmm. that was going to be all the rage, and she launched it on the eve of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and our entrance into World War II. And as soon as that happened, nobody wanted a little laughing Buddha from Asia, mm-hmm. which is, tragic and unfortunate all around. But in the very last years of her life before she passed away, she tried to go back to illustrating to make money. And what she tried to do was be an illustrator for pinup magazines, right? Drawing these voluptuous women for our armed service guys to look at overseas. And nobody would buy it. And one of the reasons that has been noted that people were very hesitant to buy art, Rose O'Neill's art of these gorgeous, women, was because she was the mother of the Kewpie. And a generation or two of people had grown up going, you've created the Kewpie, so we can't accept that kind of art from you. And she's running out of money. I personally think if she'd read this article, she would have laughed. Mm-hmm. the cathartic visualization of, yes, the Kewpies killed me.
Mm-hmm. They consumed her.
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing that I want folks to understand is that we are not anti-Kewpie. We are not anti-Rose O'Neill. We are not anti-Bonnie Brooke. In fact, we have had a wonderful relationship and partnership with Bonnie Brooke over the years, and it'll continue. This was just a story.
Absolutely.
Just an absolute story, and I think there are folks who are getting twisted for no reason at all.
Well, and I can relate to a certain degree. For some people, the Kewpie doll represents lost childhood innocence or childhood innocence, and that is a very powerful thing, and I respect that.
Yeah.
Which ultimately is why I put a trigger warning at the top of the article.
Yeah, I can't talk about how I feel about the Kewpie itself, but it showed up in my childhood at the county fair.
That's where millions of people
a Kewpie doll,
win a Kewpie doll.
Yeah, so I didn't play the games.
No, but you and I both. I mean, you had no. Now, your son has a visceral and negative response to Kewpies. Mm-hmm. You've never experienced that.
No.
I never have. My sister still has a porcelain Kewpie doll. Don't tell Ethan, because my sister collects porcelain dolls. Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of porcelain dolls. They're gorgeous. I grew up around an early collection. She already had quite a few by the time I came along. And they've just continued to expand. The collection has, and the Kewpie doll, the dolls themselves have remained the same size. But I always thought they were awesome. And in my sister Deanna's little Kewpie, I always found incredibly endearing, magical, delightful. It always kind of seemed like something from another world or another realm. And I thought it was amazing. I actually love Kewpies. So, yeah, mm-hmm. There you go.
Yep. Anyway, Kewpies are Kewpies, mm-hmm. and they'll always be Kewpies. Rose O'Neill will always be Rose O'Neill.
Yes.
The braless, cigar-smoking,
yes.
Velvet gown wearing lady who strolled through the streets of Branson in search of a cigar, yes. With her sidekick, Vance Randolph.
Yes, yeah. Very much so. Who, collected a lot of naughty folklore, shall we say? Mm-hmm. If you look up Vance Randolph, we'll get into that on a later podcast. And while we are on this, while I have you in here. We had, of course, the other article that was published mm-hmm. was an article that was a writer-artist pairing. Yes. At Writers Artist Night. Mm-hmm. The work, entitled Beneath the Willows, was written by Dalton Quick of Rolla, and the art was created by Freeman of Maple Hill Ceramics. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you thought of all that.
Well, the article, what I heard of it, I didn't get to read the entire article, but what I heard presented Friday night at Writers Night, was very evocative, and probably raised a lot of eyebrows. And Freeman, he portrayed that with his paintings just beautifully. But there were, even in that, there were some folks going, I don't know, that's kind of weird, because it involved slavery, it involved the master, it involved white folks, and
it involved a mixed race relationship.
Mixed race relationship.
It involved murder. Mm-hmm. It is a very sad and a very dark story with a lot of violence. And when I read it, I did cry. I didn't know what I was getting. I just got, these pieces in my email, and it did move me to tears. And I think that's important. I think this is the importance of art. It does evoke emotion, and it is meant to. And it is meant to evoke introspection. It's meant to cause us to think about things that sometimes we'd rather not. And it at times is very much meant to make us uncomfortable. And I think that is its greatest power. And something that I am very excited about, because of course with Writers Artist Night and with much of the art that we accept on State of the Ozarks for events like this, we do not censor the work. And I'm very excited to see this new crop of Ozark creatives who are willing to push boundaries and willing to push discussion in ways that we've traditionally avoided. And we've traditionally gotten, a lot of times, so much of the art in the past, and I'm opening another can of worms on this, but so much of the area art in the past has been pretty pictures. And I'm the first one to love pretty pictures. Anybody who's been here at Soto headquarters knows that I surround myself with pretty pictures and a lot of art. But to me, it's just incredibly important that we use art to communicate our hearts. And sometimes things of the past and things of the present are really painful and difficult. And our way of exploring these things, first and foremost, is through art. And sometimes that's uncomfortable.
That it is.
So, let's get your son back in here.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And have a good evening.
Thanks, Dale.
Ready for me? Yes, there. Go for it.
My ex was a Kewpie.
Bitter. Oh.
Oh man.
You got Matt's
Yeah.
Matt's email.
That's email.
That's email. I wanna when you get it pulled up.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Ethan, it's good to have you back.
It is good to be back.
Have you taken a deep breath after your Kewpie soapbox?
Yeah. I mean, once again, these are just my opinions on the Kewpies.
Disclaimer.
Yes.
Trigger warning.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
I mean, it's a little late for the trigger warning. But,
Yes. I think we're well past the trigger warning at this point.
we had this conversation a few weeks ago too.
Yes, we did. When I had no idea. Were you familiar with the Kewpie before I took you out to Bonnybrook?
I saw the billboards.
Uh-huh.
Had no idea what it was. Just
Yes.
thought it was a weird naked baby thing. And it turned out I was right.
Hashtag weird naked baby thing. Oh my gosh. It's so much fun.
But no, I was not familiar with the Kewpies.
Yes. And I indoctrinated you, and
Yes.
it didn't take.
Well, it took, just not the way you were.
Not the way I was leaning.
Yeah.
Not the way I was hoping. Yeah. Again, I've always found them endearing. So initially, because you are by no means alone in a visceral response.
Right.
In fact, most of the people that I have talked to, I would say it's better than 80-20.
Right.
Just respond viscerally and negatively to Kewpies.
Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of the same thing like I was talking about the Furbies earlier.
Yes.
That was a big thing when I was little. They were
Yes.
this little animatronic. You ever watch the movie Gremlin?
Yep. They are. Oh my gosh, Furbies are gremlins.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true. Gremlins scared me half to death.
Yeah, and the thing is,
when
you
I
can take
watched
the
that.
batteries out and they'll still talk to you.
Now that is creepy.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, they are possessed.
Exactly. So, maybe my fear of Kewpies has something to do with the Furby relation in my head.
Maybe
I
so.
don't know. Either way, they stare into your soul.
So, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to go off on this really quick. Jordan Peterson relates to an anthropologist who has studied the fact that in human evolution, the most dangerous thing to like primates is in the jungle is snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that our systems are hardwired to recognize snake movement as danger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where many people get this visceral response to snakes.
Mm-hmm.
That it represents danger. It innately represents danger. I'm wondering. Now I'm just wondering, throwing that out there.
Uh-huh.
But let's. I do want to wrap this up, but I want to conclude. Matt Farmer.
Yes.
Big shout out to Matt Farmer. He and Jessica own Vintage Paris,
Mm-hmm.
where we hosted Writers Artist Night. And
Yeah.
of course, in addition to Soto HQ here, Vintage Paris is pretty much Soto HQ as well.
Right. It's
And
like a field headquarters.
That's exactly what it is. It is our State of the Ozarks field headquarters. And Matt emailed me last night.
Yep.
And I'm going to share it because it really touched my heart. He said, I don't know about you, but this year's Writer Artist Night was the most powerful, uplifting, community enriching event we have ever hosted. 1 + 1 = 3 that night. The sum of all the collective work took on its own art form. Not just human expression, but community expression was manifested. I love what our Ozarks is doing right now, and I am so blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah.
That is incredibly humbling.
Yeah, especially when you get it from Matt, who is he and Jess are both very big pillars as far as community.
Yes, they are community leaders. They're community stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Stakeholders sounds so technical. To put it in short, they are my inspiration
Yeah.
for building the State of the Ozarks creative community. They are the ones I look up to and aspire to be like.
Mm-hmm. And then if it wasn't for Matt and Jess, the State of the Ozarks community wouldn't be here. Because we touched on this in our conversation earlier, not on podcast, but basically State of the Ozarks took Matt and Jess's vision and took it where beyond Vintage Paris, where they couldn't
Yes,
go.
and that came from conversations that I had with Matt, where he's sharing his idea of community and the importance of taking care of the community and putting the community first and creating safe spaces, really. Except for the people who are triggered by my work, but safe spaces for the community to find respite and to be supported and essentially to be ministered to in a non-religious sort of way.
Right.
And when Matt emailed that to me, it's just an extraordinary honor.
Yeah.
And of course it was just a little less than a year ago that Matt and Jessica invited me over, cooked me dinner, and asked me to do a podcast. So beautiful, beautiful, full circle.
Yeah.
Super excited.
We need to get them on here.
We will.
Good.
We'll get them in soon. So, to learn more,
visit us on stateoftheozarks.net.
sign up for the State of the Ozarks weekly email.
Like State of the Ozarks on Facebook.
Follow @Soto Media on Twitter.
Subscribe to Soto Media on YouTube.
Follow us on Instagram @State of the Ozarks.
And subscribe to this Been Thinking About podcast on iTunes.
Thank you for listening to the Been Thinking About, the State of the Ozarks podcast with Josh.
And Ethan.
And this is our Ozarks.
Your community. And that's a wrap. Kewpies are evil.
Kewpies are endearing. #cute Kewpie.
Pause that and I'll give you my answer.
Good night, folks.
Good night.